I'll never forget the moment my entire world crumbled over Mom's apple pie. We were sitting around the dinner table celebrating Dad's 68th birthday when he casually mentioned Tyler's inheritance like I already knew. The fork dropped from my hand as the words sank in. 3 years of paying their mortgage utilities, medical bills, and groceries. $60,000 of my own money while my younger brother pursued his music dreams in California. Now I discovered they'd secretly changed their will, leaving everything to Tyler while cutting me out completely. $400,000. Gone. The silence that followed Dad's casual comment stretched like a taut wire about to snap. I stared at both my parents, searching their faces for any sign that this was some terrible misunderstanding. Mom's eyes darted away from mine, suddenly fascinated by the remaining crumbs on her dessert plate. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the realization of his slip slowly dawning across his weathered features. "What inheritance?" I managed to ask, though my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Mom finally looked up, her expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Colby, sweetheart, we were going to tell you eventually. We just thought it would be easier this way." Easier. The word exploded from my mouth louder than I intended. "You changed your will without telling me after everything I've done for you both." Dad cleared his throat, adopting the tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "Son, you have to understand. Tyler needs this more than you do. You've got your accounting job, your steady income. You're established. Tyler is still trying to find his way. Find his way." At 30 years old, Tyler was still finding his way, while I'd been supporting our parents since I was 29. I thought about the engagement ring I'd been saving for the down payment on a house that Sarah and I had been planning, all delayed because family came first. That's what they'd always taught me. "I've given you over $60,000 in the past 3 years. I said, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of the table. "I've covered your mortgage when Dad's Social Security wasn't enough. I've paid for Mom's medications, your car repairs, your property taxes. I even bought you that new refrigerator last month when yours broke down. And we're grateful, honey." Mom interjected, reaching across the table as if to touch my hand. I pulled back. "But you know Tyler has struggled. He dropped out of college and his music career hasn't taken off yet. He needs the security of knowing he'll have something to fall back on." The irony was suffocating. Tyler, who'd borrowed $5,000 from me 4 years ago and never paid it back. Tyler, who'd started 3 different businesses that all failed because he lost interest. Tyler, who called our parents maybe once a month and visited even less frequently. "What about me?" I asked. "What about my security? What about the fact that I've postponed my own life to take care of you?" Dad's face hardened in that familiar way when he decided a conversation was over. "Family takes care of family, Colby. That doesn't change just because of what's in a will. We raised you to be responsible, and we expect you to continue being responsible." The words hit me like a physical blow. They expected me to keep paying their bills, even though they decided I deserved nothing in return. I thought about Sarah waiting at home, probably looking at wedding venues online, trusting that we'd finally have enough saved to start our own life together. "So, let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You've left everything to Tyler, who contributes nothing to this family, and you expect me to keep supporting you financially because it's my responsibility. You're twisting our words." Mom said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "We love you both equally. This isn't about love." "Then what is it about?" "It's about need," Dad said firmly. "Tyler needs this inheritance to get on his feet. You don't." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "When did you change the will?" My parents exchanged a look that told me everything I needed to know. Mom spoke first. "About 18 months ago. 18 months. Right around the time I'd increased my monthly contributions to cover their rising medical costs. Right around the time Sarah had first mentioned wanting to start planning our wedding." "Does Tyler know?" I asked. "Of course he knows," Dad said. "We discussed it with him when we made the decision. So Tyler had known for over a year that he was set to inherit everything, while I continued to sacrifice my own financial future for people who'd already written me off. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. Here's what's going to happen. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm done. No more mortgage payments. No more utility bills. No more emergency funds when something breaks down. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Mom gasped. You can't just abandon us? Abandon you. I laughed bitterly. You abandoned me 18 months ago when you decided my loyalty and sacrifice meant nothing. You've got Tyler now. He can take care of you with his inheritance. The inheritance doesn't help us now, Dad protested. We need your support until you die, I finished. So I'm supposed to pay your way through life and then watch Tyler inherit everything I helped preserve. The truth hung in the air like smoke. They'd planned this all along. Keep Colby paying the bills while Tyler gets the reward. The dutiful son and the favored son playing their assigned roles in my parents' grand design. Dad's voice took on an edge I rarely heard. If you walk away from this family, don't expect to come crawling back later. Don't worry, I said, already heading toward the door. I won't. But as I reached for my coat, Dad dropped the final bomb. Oh, and we already spent next month's mortgage payment on Tyler's new recording equipment. He said he needed professional-grade microphones to finally break into the industry. We figured you'd understand and cover it anyway. I turned back slowly, my hand still on the doorknob. You spent money you didn't have on Tyler's equipment, assuming I just pay the mortgage like always. Well, yes, Mom said as if this was perfectly reasonable. You always do. That was the moment I realized they didn't see me as a son making sacrifices out of love. They saw me as a utility company they never had to worry about shutting off service. The devastating clarity of that realization gave me a strange sense of peace. Call Tyler, I said quietly. Tell him to start looking for a job. The phone started ringing at 6 in the morning, exactly 3 days after I'd walked out of my parents' house. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what I'd find when I finally listened. Colby, it's Mom. Listen, sweetie, I think we need to talk. Your father's blood pressure has been through the roof since our conversation Sunday night. Dr. Peterson says stress like this could trigger another heart episode. Please call us back. The guilt trip had officially begun. Sarah found me staring at my phone over coffee, the voicemail still playing on speaker. She'd been unusually quiet since I'd told her about the will processing what this meant for our future in her typically thoughtful way. How many messages, she asked. 12 since yesterday, I said, and 15 text messages. She sat down across from me, her expression serious. What do they want? The usual. Family obligation. Dad's health? How disappointed they are in my selfishness. I scrolled through the text messages, each one more manipulative than the last. Oh, and apparently Tyler called them crying about how guilty he feels that his inheritance is causing family drama. Crying Tyler, huh? Sarah's voice carried the skepticism I was feeling. The same Tyler who hasn't visited them in 8 months. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with another text. This one was from Tyler himself. Bro, I heard you're upset about the will thing. I never wanted this to cause problems between us. Maybe we should talk. I'm flying home this weekend to help sort everything out. I showed the message to Sarah, whose eyebrows shot up. He's flying home. When's the last time he did that without someone dying or getting married? 2 Christmases ago, I said. And he left after 1 day because he said Mom's cooking was too heavy for his new dietary restrictions. My phone rang again. This time it was my Aunt Linda Dad's sister. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Colby. Her voice was carefully neutral. I wanted to check in with you. Your parents called me yesterday and they're quite concerned. I'm sure they are. Look, I don't know all the details about what happened, but I do know families sometimes say things they don't mean when emotions are running high. Maybe it's worth having another conversation. I found myself wondering what exactly my parents had told her. Aunt Linda, did they tell you about the will? There was a pause. They mentioned there had been some discussion about inheritance planning. Did they tell you they cut me out completely while leaving everything to Tyler? Another pause longer this time. No, they didn't mention that specifically. Did they tell you I've been supporting them financially for 3 years? Over $60,000, while Tyler has contributed nothing. Colby, I had no idea. Then you don't have all the information you need to give advice about family reconciliation. After hanging up, I realized my parents were managing the narrative, carefully presenting themselves as hurt and confused by my sudden abandonment, while omitting the crucial details that explained my decision. That afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a familiar voice caught me off guard. "Hey man, it's Brad from college. I ran into your brother Tyler at a music venue last night, and he mentioned you guys were having some family drama. He seemed pretty torn up about it." Brad lived in Los Angeles, where Tyler had been supposedly struggling to make ends meet. I hadn't talked to him in over a year. "What exactly did Tyler tell you?" I asked. "Just that your parents changed their will, and now you're refusing to help them with bills anymore. He said he's flying home to try to fix things. Dude seemed genuinely worried about your folks." What was Tyler doing at a music venue? I thought he was broke. Well, he was buying rounds for everyone at the bar after his set. Mentioned something about finally getting some family money to invest in his music properly. Seemed pretty excited about it. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Tyler wasn't torn up about family drama. He was celebrating his windfall and telling people his version of events to make me look like the villain. The struggling musician had enough money to buy drinks for strangers while our parents panicked about next month's mortgage. When Sarah got home from work that evening, she found me researching family law websites on my laptop. "Learning anything useful?" she asked, settling beside me on the couch. "Mostly that emotional manipulation isn't illegal even when it should be." I closed the laptop and turned to face her. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Okay." "How long have you been frustrated with this situation with me supporting my parents while we put our life on hold?" She was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. "Do you want the diplomatic answer or the honest answer?" "Honest." 2.5 years. Since the third time we postponed looking at houses because your dad needed a new furnace. She took my hand. "But I understood why you felt responsible. They're your parents. I just wished they appreciated what you were sacrificing. And now I think they've shown you exactly how much they value your sacrifices. The question is whether you're going to keep making them." That night my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "The mortgage company called today. We're 30 days behind. Please don't let your father lose his home over pride, Colby. This house is all we have left." I stared at the message for a long time, imagining my parents sitting in the living room I'd helped them recarpet last year, worrying about foreclosure. Then I thought about Tyler in his Los Angeles apartment, probably planning how to spend his inheritance, completely unconcerned about the immediate crisis. I typed back, "Tyler inherited the house. Tyler can figure out how to pay for it." Mom's response came immediately. "Tyler doesn't have that kind of money right now. You know he's struggling to establish his career." I almost laughed at the irony. Tyler had enough money to buy drinks for strangers, but not enough to help with the house he was inheriting. The house I'd been keeping afloat while he pursued his dreams. Then came the message that changed everything. "Please, Colby, I'm begging you. Tyler says you've been telling people he doesn't contribute to the family, and that's not fair. He sends us emotional support and calls regularly. Money isn't everything. Family is forever." Tyler says. Tyler says I'd been telling people he doesn't contribute. The manipulation had evolved into outright lies, and suddenly I understood what I was really dealing with. This wasn't just about financial support or inheritance. This was about controlling the narrative and ensuring I remained in my assigned role as the family ATM while Tyler played the misunderstood artist. I forwarded the message to Sarah without comment. Her response came back within minutes. Now you know where you really stand. She was right. The question was what I was going to do about it. 6 weeks passed before the foreclosure notice arrived. I only knew about it because my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, called me at work, her voice tight with concern. "Colby, honey, there's a man in a suit posting something on your parents' front door. Your mother came out crying, and your father looked like he'd seen a ghost. I thought you should know." I thanked Mrs. Peterson and sat in my office cubicle staring at my computer screen, without seeing anything. The mortgage was 90 days behind now. 3 months of payments that would have totaled $4,200. Money I could have easily covered if I'd continued playing my role in their financial drama. My desk phone rang 20 minutes later. Colby Williams speaking. "It's your father." His voice carried a weight I'd never heard before, stripped of the authority he usually projected. "We need to talk." "I'm at work, Dad." "The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. We have 30 days to bring the mortgage current or we lose the house." I leaned back in my chair, watching my coworkers go about their normal Wednesday afternoon routines. "Have you called Tyler?" "Tyler doesn't have $14,000. $14,000, I thought it was 3 months behind." "It's more complicated than that." Dad's voice cracked slightly. "We took out a home equity loan last year to help with Tyler's business venture. When that didn't work out, we couldn't keep up with both payments." The business venture. I remembered Tyler calling 8 months ago, excited about starting a music production company with some friends. He'd needed seed money and convinced our parents to leverage their house to help him. Another detail they'd conveniently omitted from our previous conversations. "How much do you owe total?" "The original mortgage plus the equity loan plus penalties, around $38,000. $38,000. Nearly 2/3 of my annual salary, and more than half of what I'd already given them over the years. "Dad, I can't." "I'm not asking you to pay it all at once," he interrupted. "But if we lose this house, we lose everything. Your mother and I will have nowhere to go. We're too old to start over." The emotional manipulation was more refined now, less heavy-handed than Mom's earlier guilt trips. Dad understood that dramatic pleas made me defensive, so he was appealing to logic and basic human decency. "What about Tyler's inheritance? Can't he take out a loan against it?" "The inheritance is tied up in probate procedures we haven't completed yet. And besides, Tyler's credit isn't good enough for that kind of loan." Tyler's credit wasn't good enough because Tyler had already destroyed it with previous failed ventures and unpaid debts. But somehow, this was still my problem to solve. "Dad, you need to understand something. When you changed that, you made a choice about who you want responsible for your financial future. I'm respecting that choice. This isn't about the will anymore, Colby. This is about basic human compassion. Was it compassionate when you spent my mortgage payment on Tyler's recording equipment without asking? Was it compassionate when you and Mom talked to Tyler for 18 months about cutting me out of the will while I kept writing checks?" Silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of questions neither of us wanted to answer. "Your mother's health is deteriorating from the stress," he finally said. "Dr. Peterson says her blood pressure is dangerously high. If something happens to her because of this situation," the threat hung unspoken in the air. "If Mom had a health crisis, it would be my fault for refusing to pay their bills. Not Tyler's fault for taking money they didn't have. Not their fault for making financial decisions without considering consequences. Mine." After hanging up, I called Sarah. "They're 3 months behind on the mortgage," I told her. "Plus a home equity loan they took out for Tyler that went bad. $38,000 total. Jesus, Colby, there's more. They borrowed against the house to fund Tyler's business venture. When it failed, they couldn't keep up with the payments. And they hid this from you while you were covering their other bills." "Apparently so." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking?" I'm thinking I need to know exactly how deep this goes before I make any decisions. That evening, I drove to my parents' neighborhood and parked across the street from their house. The yellow foreclosure notice was clearly visible on the front door, impossible to miss for anyone walking by. I thought about all the neighbors who'd watched me help with yard work over the years, who'd seen me coming and going with groceries and supplies. What were they thinking now? As I sat there, Mr. Johnson from next door walked over and tapped on my window. I rolled it down, steeling myself for another guilt trip. "Colby, I'm glad I caught you." His expression was serious but not accusatory. "I wanted you to know that a man came by last week asking about your parents' financial situation. Said he was from some kind of lending company. Your folks didn't answer the door, but he left a business card." "What kind of lending company?" "The predatory kind, if you ask me. High-interest loans for people in foreclosure. I threw away his card, but I thought you should know they're being targeted. Predatory lenders circling elderly homeowners in financial distress. Another layer of complexity I hadn't considered. If my parents were desperate enough, they might sign on to something that would make their situation even worse. Mr. Johnson, can I ask you something? Have you noticed other people coming around? Maybe asking about Tyler or family finances?" His face darkened. "Funny you should ask. Your brother was here about 2 weeks ago with a woman I didn't recognize. They spent about an hour in the house with your parents, and when they left, your mother was crying. The woman had a briefcase and looked like business, if you know what I mean. Tyler had brought someone to the house, someone with a briefcase who'd left Mom in tears. This was getting more complicated by the minute. Thanks for the heads up, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate you looking out for them. They're good people, your parents. Just seems like they've gotten themselves into a mess they can't handle." As I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Janet, Tyler's girlfriend. We need to talk. Tyler doesn't know I'm contacting you. But there are things you need to know about what's really happening. Can you meet me tomorrow?" I stared at the message, wondering what Tyler's girlfriend could possibly want to discuss. Then I remembered Mr. Johnson's description of the woman with the briefcase. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. I texted back, "Coffee shop on Main Street, 2 p.m. Her response was immediate, "Thank you. Trust me, you need to hear this." Whatever was happening in my family had just gotten significantly more complicated, and I had the sinking feeling that the foreclosure notice was just the beginning. Janet was nothing like I'd expected. Where Tyler usually dated dramatic, high-maintenance women who shared his artistic temperament, Janet appeared practical and serious, dressed in business attire that suggested a real job with actual responsibilities. She was already seated when I arrived, nursing a coffee and checking her phone with the focused attention of someone accustomed to managing schedules and deadlines. "Colby." She stood up as I approached, extending her hand in a firm handshake. "Thank you for meeting me. I know this must seem strange." "Strange is one word for it," I said, settling across from her. "Tyler doesn't know you're here. Tyler thinks I'm at work, which I should be. But some things are more important than quarterly reports." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, gathering her thoughts. "How much do you know about Tyler's actual financial situation? I know he's supposed to be struggling to establish his music career while living off credit cards and odd jobs." Janet's laugh was bitter. "Is that what he told your parents?" "That's what they told me he told them. Tyler hasn't struggled financially in over 2 years. He landed a production deal with a mid-level record label 18 months ago. Not as an artist, but as a sound engineer. He makes $67,000 a year plus benefits." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small. "I'm sorry, what?" "He's been lying to your family about his income while collecting money from your parents and letting you cover their bills." Janet pulled out her phone and scrolled through what appeared to be bank statements. "Want to see his savings account balance? You have access to his banking information? We've been living together for 8 months. Shared accounts, shared expenses. I handle most of our finances because Tyler's money management skills are..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Questionable." I leaned forward. "How questionable?" He's gambled away $34,000 in the past year. Sports betting, poker games, casino trips to Vegas. He's convinced he has a system, but his system involves losing consistently while believing he's about to hit it big. The sound of the coffee shop faded into background noise as I processed this information. Tyler wasn't a struggling artist. He was a compulsive gambler with a steady income lying to our parents while I subsidized their lifestyle. The business venture that failed, I said slowly. The one they took out the home equity loan for. Never existed. Tyler took that money straight to a poker tournament in Atlantic City. Lost it all in 3 days. Why are you telling me this? Janet's expression hardened. Because 2 weeks ago, Tyler brought me to your parents' house to witness him signing papers. He told them the documents would protect the house from creditors while he worked on getting money together to help with their debts. What kind of papers? Power of attorney documents. He convinced them to sign over financial control because he said banks would be more likely to work with someone younger who could navigate modern financial systems. The woman with the briefcase? The one Mr. Johnson had seen leaving my parents in tears? Janet, please tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying. Tyler has been systematically draining your parents' savings account, small amounts at first so they wouldn't notice. But it's accelerated recently. He's taken over $20,000 in the past 3 months. I stared at her, my mind reeling. While they've been facing foreclosure. While they've been calling you begging for help, yes. He's been stealing their emergency funds and telling them you abandoned the family out of greed and selfishness. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I struggled to find words. Tyler hadn't just lied about his financial situation. He'd actively sabotaged our parents while manipulating them into blaming me for their problems. Why didn't you stop him? I tried. I threatened to leave him if he didn't come clean and pay the money back. That's when he showed me the will and explained that he was just accessing his inheritance a little early. He said your parents were fine with it because they'd rather give him money now when he needed it than wait until they died. And you believed that? Not entirely, but Tyler can be very convincing when he wants to be. He had explanations for everything, and I didn't know enough about your family dynamics to challenge him. Janet's voice dropped. Then, last week, I overheard him on the phone with someone talking about selling the house as soon as he inherited it. He was getting estimates from real estate agents. The final piece fell into place. Tyler wasn't just stealing money now. He was planning to sell the family home immediately upon our parents' death, leaving them with nowhere to live if they survived long enough to see his true intentions. He wants them out of the house while they're still alive. He's hoping the foreclosure will force them into a nursing home or assisted living facility. Then he won't have to deal with them when he inherits, and he can sell immediately without guilt or complications. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Tyler's deception. He'd been playing a long game, manipulating everyone while positioning himself to profit from our parents' misfortune. Why are you telling me this now? Because yesterday he asked me to marry him. Janet's eyes filled with tears. He's planning to propose with a ring he bought, using money stolen from your parents' account. And when I confronted him about it, he laughed and said it didn't matter because they'd never miss it anyway. What did you tell him about the proposal? That I needed time to think about it. But really, I needed time to figure out how to do the right thing without destroying my own life in the process. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. I can't marry someone who would steal from elderly people, especially his own family, but I also can't stand by and watch him destroy your parents while you get blamed for abandoning them. Do you have proof of the theft? Bank statements, withdrawal records, copies of the power of attorney documents? Tyler keeps everything organized because he thinks he's too smart to get caught. Would you be willing to go to the police? If it means stopping him, yes. But I need your help. Tyler trusts me, so I can probably get additional evidence if we're careful about it. I thought about my parents sitting in their house with foreclosure notices on the door, believing their oldest son had abandoned them, while their youngest son robbed them blind. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Janet, there's something you should know. Tyler isn't just stealing from my parents. He's been lying to them about me, poisoning their opinion of me while I've been supporting them for years. I know. I heard some of those conversations. He told them you resented having to help and were looking for excuses to cut them off financially. Why would he do that? Because as long as they blamed you for their problems, they'd never look closely at what he was doing. He needed you to be the villain in their story so he could be the victim. As I walked back to my car, I felt the weight of finally understanding the full scope of Tyler's manipulation. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or financial desperation. This was calculated elder abuse disguised as family drama, and I'd been inadvertently enabling it by playing my assigned role as the responsible but unappreciated son. But now I knew the truth. And now I had an ally who understood exactly what Tyler was capable of. The question was what we were going to do about it. The attorney's office smelled like leather and disappointment, filled with the accumulated weight of other people's legal problems. Margaret Chen was recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a messy divorce, and her reputation for aggressive representation preceded her into the room. "Mr. Williams," she said, reviewing the documents Janet had provided, "this is elder financial abuse, plain and simple. The power of attorney documents are legally questionable, and the systematic withdrawal of funds while victims face foreclosure elevates this to criminal territory." Janet shifted uncomfortably in her chair beside me. "What kind of criminal charges are we talking about?" "Fraud, theft, elder abuse, potentially forgery, if these signatures were obtained under false pretenses." Margaret spread out bank statements showing Tyler's withdrawals. The pattern is clear: small amounts initially, then larger sums as confidence grew. This is textbook predatory behavior. "What about the will?" I asked. "Tyler convinced my parents to change it 18 months ago. Could that be connected?" "Tell me about the circumstances surrounding the will change." I explained Tyler's sudden involvement in family finances, his claims about needing security while establishing his career, and my parents' secrecy about the decision. Margaret made notes, her expression growing more serious. "Did your parents use an attorney for the will change, or did Tyler handle the paperwork?" "I don't know. They never mentioned meeting with a lawyer." "Janet, you said Tyler keeps organized records. Did you see any legal documents related to the will?" "There's a file in his desk at home." I didn't look through it carefully, but I remember seeing papers with official-looking seals and signatures. "I need you to photograph everything in that file without Tyler knowing. If he prepared those documents himself or used fraudulent legal services, the will change might be invalid." The possibility that Tyler had forged the will hadn't occurred to me, but it made sense given the scope of his deception. He'd been planning this for over a year, systematically destroying family relationships while positioning himself to inherit everything. "What's our next step?" I asked. "First, we document everything. Janet photographs Tyler's files. I investigate the legal validity of the will and power of attorney documents. Then we decide whether to pursue criminal charges or civil remedies." "What's the difference?" "Criminal charges mean police involvement, potential jail time for Tyler, but uncertain recovery of stolen funds. Civil remedies focus on recovering money and invalidating fraudulent documents, but Tyler might avoid serious legal consequences." Janet spoke up. "What happens to me if we go criminal? I've been living with him sharing accounts." "Won't I be considered complicit?" "Not if you're cooperating to stop ongoing crimes. Your willingness to provide evidence and testify actually protects you legally." Margaret turned to me. "The bigger question is whether you're prepared for the family destruction this will cause. Criminal charges against Tyler mean your parents will learn the truth about everything he's done. They need to know the truth. They might not thank you for revealing it. Sometimes families prefer comfortable lies to devastating truths." That afternoon, Janet returned to the apartment she shared with Tyler, armed with a hidden camera app on her phone. She texted me updates throughout the evening as she systematically photographed financial records, legal documents, and email communications. The evidence was worse than we'd imagined. Tyler had indeed prepared the will change documents himself using an online legal service that required minimal verification. The signatures appeared genuine, but the witnessing requirements hadn't been properly met, potentially invalidating the entire document. More damning were Tyler's emails with the online gambling sites. He'd been losing money consistently for 2 years, funding his addiction with credit cards, personal loans, and increasingly money stolen from our parents. But the most shocking discovery was a series of text messages between Tyler and someone named Marcus, apparently a bookie or loan organizer. "Need the $15K by Friday or we have problems," Marcus had written 3 weeks earlier. Tyler's response, "No worries. Old folks won't miss it from their savings. They've got plenty." The casual cruelty of referring to our parents as old folks while stealing their retirement money was breathtaking. Tyler wasn't just gambling. He was apparently involved with illegal betting operations that used threats to collect debts. Janet's final discovery was a handwritten note in Tyler's desk drawer, apparently a draft of talking points for conversations with our parents. "Colby resents helping you and is looking for excuses to cut off support. I'm worried he's planning to abandon you completely. Maybe it's better if I handle your finances from now on. I can make sure you're protected." The manipulation was premeditated and systematic. Tyler had written himself a script for turning our parents against me while positioning himself as their financial savior. Margaret reviewed the evidence the next morning with the focused intensity of someone accustomed to complicated cases. "This changes everything," she said. "The will change is invalid due to improper witnessing. The power of attorney was obtained through fraudulent misrepresentation. And the systematic theft is well documented." "What can we do about the foreclosure?" I asked. If Tyler obtained power of attorney fraudulently, all his financial decisions made on their behalf are void. That includes any agreements with the bank regarding modified payment schedules or loan restructuring. Meaning your parents might have more options than they realize. Tyler may have sabotaged negotiations with the mortgage company to accelerate foreclosure proceedings. The scope of Tyler's deception was staggering. He hadn't just stolen money and manipulated family relationships. He'd actively worked to worsen our parents' financial situation to serve his own interests. "I want to file criminal charges," I said. "This has to stop. I'll contact the district attorney's office and the elder abuse unit with the police department. But Colby, you need to be prepared for your parents to initially defend Tyler." Victims of family financial abuse often protect their abusers, especially when the truth is too painful to accept. What should I tell them? Nothing yet. Let the police handle initial contact. If your parents hear accusations from you first, Tyler can frame it as sibling rivalry and jealousy over the inheritance. As I left Margaret's office, I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that the truth was finally coming to light, but dread about the destruction it would cause in what remained of our family relationships. Tyler had been so careful, so systematic in his manipulation, that exposing him would require destroying the illusions that had protected my parents from recognizing their younger son's true nature. But the alternative was allowing him to continue stealing from them while they faced homelessness, all while believing I'd abandoned them out of selfishness and greed. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Detective Sarah Martinez from the Elder Abuse Unit had the kind of presence that commanded immediate respect, calm, professional, and utterly uncompromising when it came to protecting vulnerable adults. She sat across from me in the police station conference room reviewing Janet's evidence, with the methodical precision of someone who'd seen enough family betrayals to fill several lifetimes. "Mr. Williams, this is one of the more comprehensive elder abuse cases I've encountered. Your brother's pattern of behavior shows clear intent and sophisticated planning." She held up printed copies of Tyler's text messages. These communications about stealing from old folks demonstrate consciousness of guilt and premeditation. What happens next? We execute a search warrant on Tyler's residence and arrest him on multiple charges: elder financial abuse, fraud, theft, and potentially forgery if the will documents prove to be improperly executed. Detective Martinez closed the file folder. Janet's cooperation is crucial. She's agreed to wear a recording device when Tyler returns from his Vegas trip tomorrow. Tyler was in Las Vegas. Of course he was. Probably gambling away more stolen money while our parents sat at home, worrying about foreclosure notices and my supposed abandonment of the family. What should I expect when you arrest him? Denial, blame-shifting claims that he was helping your parents manage their finances. Perpetrators of family financial abuse often believe their own justifications. She paused. He'll likely try to implicate you, suggesting you're fabricating evidence out of jealousy about the inheritance. My parents are going to be devastated. They're going to be confused and hurt. But Mr. Williams, your parents are also going to be relieved. Deep down, they probably sensed something was wrong but couldn't identify what it was. The truth, however painful, will answer questions they didn't know they were asking. That evening, I called Sarah and told her about the impending arrest. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I'm about to blow up what's left of my family to save it." "Colby, your family was already blown up. Tyler did that 18 months ago when he decided to steal from your parents and manipulate everyone into enabling his behavior. You're not destroying anything. You're revealing destruction that already happened." She was right, but that didn't make it easier to contemplate the next 48 hours. Janet called me at 6 in the morning 2 days later, her voice shaky but determined. "It's done." Tyler confessed everything when he thought no one else could hear him. The recording is crystal clear. What did he say? He laughed about how easy it was to convince your parents that you resented helping them. He bragged about taking $27,000 without them noticing, and he admitted that he's been planning to sell the house immediately after inheriting it, regardless of whether your parents are still alive. The casual cruelty in Tyler's own words would be devastating for our parents to hear, but it was also undeniable proof of his true character. "The police are picking him up in an hour," Janet continued. "He thinks I'm at work, but I'm actually sitting in Detective Martinez's office going through final details of my statement." "How are you holding up?" "I'm sad that someone I cared about turned out to be capable of this, but I'm proud that I did the right thing." Tyler's arrest happened at 11:30 a.m. on a Thursday. I wasn't present, but Detective Martinez called me afterward with a summary. He tried to blame you, initially claiming you'd manipulated Janet into fabricating evidence because you were angry about the inheritance. When we played the recording of his confession, he shifted to justification mode, said your parents were going to leave him the money anyway, so he was just accessing it early. Did he admit to the gambling debts? Eventually. Turns out he owes significant money to some very unforgiving people. The theft from your parents was partially motivated by fear of physical consequences if he didn't pay. Tyler wasn't just a manipulative thief. He was also a scared gambler in over his head, using our parents' retirement savings to pay off dangerous creditors. What about my parents? Do they know yet? We're heading to their house now to explain the situation and return financial control of their accounts. You might want to be available by phone. They're going to have questions. The call came 3 hours later. Mom's voice was barely recognizable, shattered by the weight of revelations she was still processing. "Colby, the police, they said Tyler, I don't understand what's happening." "Mom, I'm coming over right now. We need to talk." "They arrested Tyler. They said he stole money from us. They said the will might not be real." "I'll explain everything when I get there." I found my parents sitting in their living room like survivors of a natural disaster, surrounded by financial documents the police had returned and bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals they'd never noticed. Dad looked older than I'd ever seen him while Mom clutched a tissue box like a lifeline. "We didn't know," Dad said as soon as I walked in. "We thought you were angry about the inheritance and didn't want to help us anymore. Tyler said you told people he was irresponsible and didn't deserve the house." "Tyler lied about everything, Dad. I never said anything negative about him to anyone." But he showed us bank statements proving he'd been sending us money, Mom protested. $500 a month for the past year? Where did you think that money was coming from? He said he'd been working extra jobs, saving every penny to help us. Mom's voice broke. He said he wanted to prove he was responsible enough to handle the inheritance. The $500 a month Tyler had been sending them was money he'd stolen from their own savings account, then transferred back to make it look like contributions. Even his apparent generosity was a lie designed to reinforce their trust while he robbed them. The police said he took over $20,000, Dad said. $20,000 we needed for the mortgage. More than that. The gambling debts, the fake business loan, the money he spent in Vegas. Tyler has stolen or wasted nearly $40,000 that should have gone toward your financial security. Mom started crying again, the sound of someone whose fundamental understanding of her own family had been shattered in a single afternoon. Why would he do this to us? We gave him everything he asked for. We loved him. You did love him, Mom. You both did. Tyler took advantage of that love and used it against you. But the will, Dad said. We signed papers making Tyler responsible for our finances. We thought it was the right thing to do. The will change isn't legally valid. Tyler prepared the documents improperly, and the power of attorney was obtained through fraud. You're getting your financial control back. Over the next 2 hours, we went through everything. Tyler's real income, his gambling addiction, his systematic lies about me, his plan to sell the house, his involvement with dangerous creditors. Each revelation hit my parents like a physical blow, but they listened to everything because they finally needed to understand what had been happening in their own family. We owe you an apology, Dad said finally. We believed Tyler's lies about you while you were supporting us. We treated you terribly. You were manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not your fault. It is our fault, Mom said firmly. We should have asked more questions. We should have talked to you directly instead of believing Tyler's version of your feelings. What matters now is that we move forward with the truth. Can you forgive us? Dad asked. Can we find a way to rebuild what we damaged? Looking at my parents elderly and heartbroken, but finally willing to see the truth about their family situation, I felt the anger I'd been carrying for months begin to dissolve. We can rebuild, I said. But it has to be different this time. Honest communication, realistic expectations, and no more secrets about money or family decisions. What about Tyler? Mom asked. What happens to him now? Tyler faces serious criminal charges. He'll probably go to prison and he'll have to pay back everything he stole. But that's a consequence of choices he made, not something we did to him. As I prepared to leave that evening, Dad handed me a folded piece of paper. This is a new will, he said. Margaret Chen helped us prepare it this afternoon. Everything's split equally between you and Tyler the way it should have been from the beginning. Dad, you don't have to… Yes, we do. We made mistakes that nearly destroyed our family. This is part of making things right. I hugged both of my parents goodbye, feeling cautiously hopeful for the first time in months. Tyler's deception had caused tremendous damage, but it had also forced all of us to confront truths about family responsibility and unconditional love that we'd been avoiding for too long. The road to rebuilding trust would be long and difficult, but at least now we were walking it together with honesty instead of manipulation, guiding our steps. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse hallway watching Tyler in an orange jumpsuit accept a plea bargain that would send him to prison for 2 years and require him to pay full restitution to our parents. The man who'd systematically stolen from elderly family members while manipulating everyone around him looked smaller, now diminished by the weight of consequences he could no longer avoid or blame on others. The district attorney had been thorough in building the case. Elder financial abuse in the first degree, multiple counts of theft, fraud, and forgery. Tyler's gambling addiction wasn't considered a mitigating factor. If anything, it demonstrated the ongoing danger he posed to vulnerable family members who trusted him. Mom and Dad sat beside me, their hands clasped together, watching their younger son accept responsibility for crimes that had nearly destroyed their financial security and their faith in family bonds. The sight was heartbreaking and necessary in equal measure. The defendant will surrender himself to county jail in 30 days to begin serving his sentence, Judge Patterson announced. Restitution payments of $800 per month will commence immediately upon release. Tyler would be paying our parents back for the next 5 years, assuming he found legitimate employment and stayed away from gambling. The court had also mandated addiction counseling and financial management classes, though. Whether Tyler would genuinely engage with treatment remained to be seen. Outside the courthouse, Tyler approached our small family group with the tentative steps of someone who'd finally realized the extent of damage he'd caused. "Mom, Dad," he said, his voice barely audible. "I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I never intended for things to go this far." Dad's response was measured but not unkind. "Tyler, your intentions don't matter as much as your actions. You lied to us for over a year while stealing money we needed to survive. You manipulated us into blaming Colby for abandoning us while he was supporting us with his own savings. I was desperate, the gambling debts, the threats from people I owed money to. I thought I could pay everything back before you noticed. You thought you could pay back stolen money by gambling more stolen money." Mom's voice carried a disappointment deeper than anger. "Tyler, you're 30 years old. When does the responsibility for your choices become yours instead of something that happens to you?" Tyler looked at me, perhaps hoping for support or forgiveness, but I had nothing to offer beyond the hard-won clarity that had emerged from months of family therapy and honest conversations. "Tyler, I hope you get the help you need in prison," I said. "I hope you figure out how to live without lying to people who love you. But I'm not going to pretend that what you did was forgivable just because we're related. Colby, please, I know I messed up, but we're still brothers." Brothers don't steal from their parents and manipulate them into hating their other children. Brothers don't put elderly people at risk of homelessness to fund gambling addictions. I shook my head. "Being related to you doesn't mean I have to trust you or include you in my life until you demonstrate that you've genuinely changed." Tyler's face crumpled, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. I hope someday I can earn another chance with this family." "Focus on earning another chance with yourself first," Dad said. "Learn how to be honest and responsible before you worry about rebuilding relationships with people you've hurt." As Tyler walked away to turn himself in for processing, I felt a complex mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the brother I'd thought I knew who'd never really existed. Relief that the manipulation and lies were finally over, that our family could begin healing with truth as its foundation. The financial recovery had been swift once Tyler's theft was exposed. The mortgage company, facing potential legal liability for accepting payments from someone who'd fraudulently obtained power of attorney, had agreed to restructure my parents' loan with favorable terms. The stolen money was being returned through garnishment of Tyler's prison wages and future employment, though full recovery would take years. More importantly, my parents and I had established new patterns of communication built on honesty and mutual respect. They understood now that family love didn't mean unlimited financial support without accountability. I understood that helping them didn't require sacrificing my own future or enabling their poor decisions. Sarah and I had finally moved forward with our wedding plans, setting a date for the following spring. The engagement ring I'd saved for was beautiful, but not as beautiful as the knowledge that our marriage wouldn't be built on resentment about postponed dreams or unbalanced family obligations. "You know what I realized yesterday," Sarah said, as we reviewed vendor contracts for our reception. "Your family situation was toxic before Tyler's theft came to light. The theft was horrible, but it forced all of you to confront problems that might have festered for decades otherwise." She was right. Tyler's crimes had been a catastrophic blessing in disguise, destroying comfortable lies that had allowed unhealthy family dynamics to continue unchallenged. My parents had begun volunteering with the Elder Abuse Prevention Program at their community center, sharing their story to help other families recognize warning signs of financial manipulation. Mom's description of Tyler's gradual erosion of her trust in me resonated with many elderly people who'd experienced similar isolation tactics from manipulative relatives. The most insidious part, Mom told a support group 6 months after Tyler's sentencing, was how gradually it happened. Tyler didn't wake up one day and decide to steal from us. He spent months making us doubt Colby's motives and commitment to family. By the time the theft started, we were primed to believe that Colby was selfish and Tyler was our only reliable support. Dad nodded from the audience. We learned that financial abuse is usually accompanied by emotional manipulation designed to isolate victims from people who might ask uncomfortable questions. Tyler succeeded in driving a wedge between us and our responsible son, which protected him from scrutiny while he robbed us. Their willingness to speak publicly about Tyler's manipulation helped other families recognize similar patterns in their own relationships. Many elderly parents in the support group had experienced variations of the same dynamic: one child who provided genuine support but received criticism and doubt, while another child who contributed little received praise and preferential treatment. The evening after my parents' latest presentation, Dad called me with an observation that surprised him. Colby, I've been thinking about something uncomfortable. Looking back, I realize we might have been treating you and Tyler differently long before the inheritance situation. What do you mean? Tyler got praise for small gestures while you got expectations for large sacrifices. When Tyler sent $20 for your mother's birthday, we'd call him thoughtful and generous. When you paid for her medical expenses, we'd thank you, but also remind you of upcoming bills that needed attention. I never thought about it that way. We trained you to be responsible by taking your responsibility for granted. We trained Tyler to be irresponsible by celebrating minimal efforts as major contributions. Dad paused. I'm not making excuses for what Tyler did, but I think we created conditions that made his manipulation easier and your genuine care seem less valuable. The insight was painful but important. My parents were recognizing patterns that went back years, understanding how their responses to their children's behavior had inadvertently encouraged the dynamics Tyler eventually exploited. What matters is that we're all learning from it, I said, and that we're building something healthier going forward. Speaking of going forward, Dad said, your mother and I have been discussing how to handle Tyler's eventual release from prison. What are you thinking? We want to be open to reconciliation if Tyler demonstrates genuine change, but we won't allow him back into our lives unconditionally. He'll need to prove through consistent behavior over time that he's learned to be honest and responsible. That sounds reasonable. More importantly, we won't allow any future relationship with Tyler to interfere with the trust and respect we're rebuilding with you. We learned that family loyalty doesn't mean treating all children identically regardless of their behavior. A year later at my wedding reception, I gave a toast that surprised even me with its emotional honesty. Sarah and I almost didn't make it to this day. I began looking out at family and friends who'd supported us through the most difficult period of our lives. Not because we didn't love each other, but because I didn't understand the difference between healthy family support and enabling destructive behavior. I found my parents in the crowd, both of them smiling through tears. I learned that real love sometimes means setting boundaries with people you care about. I learned that protecting someone from consequences doesn't protect them at all, it protects their problems. And I learned that families can survive devastating betrayals if they're willing to rebuild with honesty instead of comfortable lies. Sarah squeezed my hand as I concluded. Tyler isn't here tonight because he made choices that removed him from our lives temporarily, but Mom and Dad are here because they made choices that brought them back into our lives permanently. The difference between those choices is the difference between manipulation and love. The applause was sustained and heartfelt, but what mattered most to me were the faces of people who'd watched our family navigate crisis and emerge stronger on the other side. 6 weeks before Tyler's scheduled release, he sent a letter to our parents. The handwriting was careful and deliberate, suggesting he drafted multiple versions before settling on the final text. "I've spent 2 years thinking about what I did to our family," he wrote. "Not just the stealing, but the lying and manipulation that made the stealing possible. I understand now that I turned you against Colby because isolating him made my theft easier to hide." The letter continued for 3 pages, detailing specific instances of manipulation and acknowledging the calculated nature of his behavior. Most importantly, it made no requests for money housing assistance or immediate reconciliation. "I'm writing to apologize and to let you know that I'm planning to start fresh in a different state when I'm released. I need to prove to myself that I can live honestly before I ask for another chance with family. I hope someday to earn your forgiveness, but I understand that forgiveness isn't something I can demand or manipulate." Mom and Dad shared the letter with me, seeking advice about how to respond. "What's your gut reaction?" I asked. "It sounds different from his previous apologies," Mom said. "More specific, less focused on excuses or justifications." "But we're scared to trust it," Dad added. "Tyler has been convincing before." "Then trust your fear. Respond with cautious acknowledgement but no commitments. If Tyler is genuinely changed, he'll understand the need for patience and proof over time." They wrote back expressing hope for Tyler's rehabilitation while making clear that rebuilding family relationships would require consistent demonstration of honesty and responsibility. No promises, no immediate acceptance, but no permanent rejection either. Tyler was released on a Tuesday in April, moving directly to a halfway house in Colorado, where he'd secured employment with a construction company. His first letter from the outside was brief and focused on practical updates rather than emotional appeals. 3 months later, he sent a money order for $50, the first payment beyond court-mandated restitution that he'd voluntarily offered our parents. "It's not much," his accompanying note read, "but I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about the damage I caused beyond just the money I stole. I hope to send more as my financial situation stabilizes." Mom and Dad deposited the check but didn't respond immediately, still processing what genuine change might look like after experiencing so much calculated deception. "Time will tell," Dad said. Tyler was always good with words. The question is whether he's learned to match actions to those words. As Sarah and I celebrated our first anniversary, I reflected on how much our lives had changed since discovering Tyler's betrayal. The crisis that nearly destroyed our family had ultimately strengthened it by forcing us to confront problems we'd been avoiding and build new relationships based on truth instead of obligation. Tyler might eventually earn his way back into our lives, or he might not. But either way, our family's future would be determined by choices made with clear eyes and honest communication, not by manipulation and comfortable lies. The inheritance that had started everything was no longer important. What mattered was that we'd learned to value each other for who we really were, not who we pretended to be or who we thought we should be. And that lesson, painful as it was to learn, had given us the foundation for building something genuine and lasting together. What happens when the people you trust most betray that trust for their own gain? How do you rebuild family relationships after discovering years of lies and manipulation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about family betrayal and redemption. Don't forget to share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of setting healthy boundaries with family members. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful truths are also the most liberating. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people who genuinely care about you.